Colleagues, may I have your attention, please? Can we ask the colleagues who are still outside to come in so that we can start with our plenary session? I will take it that, ladies and gentlemen, and please bear with me for that assumption that we did our prayers as we started in the commissions this morning, Gambo, and that I take that this is continuation of the work that started in the commissions this morning. Once again, colleagues, thank you so much for coming back to this plenary after very intensive work that undoubtedly has been going on in our commissions. We can't wait to receive, because the true essence of what we have been doing over the past 2 days is now coming to be tested in what the 7 commissions will be sharing with us, which is the product of the work that we have been doing. I may in advance hasten to appreciate the commitment, the dedication which was demonstrated last night when we started with the commissions. I had thought that people would be tired at the time we started. But looking at the robustness of the discussions that ensued, it seemed that everybody came here full of appetite. Appreciated is the fact together to receive that work. We should have started at 10:30 already. It's we have lost some time, about an hour. We shall see then how we recover from that. So, colleagues, without any further delays, allow me to call upon the first commission, and that is commission number. You are not making any assumptions that all of us understand the work that you were doing. Then you take us through. I will be whether we should entertain any additional inputs on the work of the commission after commission, or we should actually wait until the end. So there is, of course, an indication from some of the colleagues already that perhaps we should reserve that for the end of all the commissions. So, colleagues, can you welcome on stage Mr. Mbade? I take it that he is reporting on behalf of Commission number one. Can you give him a very big round of applause?
Thank you very much, DDG. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You know, this morning I find myself in the wilderness and I'm trying to locate the way up north. Whether I am seated or standing is neither here nor there. The important thing is that there is work at hand and it has to be delivered. And I happen to be the one to deliver it. Ladies and gentlemen, on progress and until an appropriate structure or school elected observing the time period. Community and stakeholder engagement. How were the communities or how were the stakeholders consulted? We debated this one. Identify schools that are proposed for closure, measure and repurposing based on learner enrollment figures, infrastructure and proximity. Then we start consulting. Consultation done through district education forums, notification of SGB in writing through section 12A and 33, notice, parents of school staff, labor unions, faith-based organizations, and local traditional leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, in the province we've got 12 districts. And the manner in which this is done differs from district to district. Consultation meetings, level, community, traditional authority, labor consultations, where we talk of public hearings as well as social facilitation. Notification of affected communities through print media, posters, and electronic media. This bullet here, even media, posters, and electronic media. This bullet here, even yesterday came to the plenary here, and people were saying, what if in the area where I am, there is no local radio station? What then? Now we're saying posters. Nature of feedback received from parents, learners, SGBs, and local leaders about what the process itself. What are the concerns and the objectives? Objections. They are putting forward reasonable concerns, reasonable objections. One, the children, especially the young ones. The loss of the ownership. Uchief Ngwekazi, apa ePedi, all of a sudden isikolo sakhe is going to be closed. And this really leaves a sour taste. Loss of governance role. I used to be the chairperson. I used to be the treasurer. Now all of a sudden my powers are taken by these officials. And that becomes a what? A problem and a contestation. Losing the convenience of nearby school and adjusting to the new environment. I'm familiar with this, and now there's this big thing coming my way. Perception of service withdrawal, political sensitivity, and decline of local development. These are the issues that we put forward by various stakeholders. But we then thought, let us just put it here this way. We identify a stakeholder, the resistance issue, the mitigation, as well as the responsibility office, because we don't want to leave it hanging. Who does what? The when part of it is not here, but who does what becomes critical. Parents refuse to accept due to safety concerns. We are saying provide scholar transport. But adhering to the what? To the policy and other issues. So we are saying UDOA and UDOT must really come to the party. Emotional attachment to these learning institutions, we conduct awareness. When we conduct this awareness, we are saying let us be honest to the people and say, what is this going to achieve? What are the benefits? Better resourcing, quality teaching and e-learning, and improved learner outcomes. Doesn't matter whether you are born in those rural areas, you can still become a what? A pilot. But how are you going to be if your school is not better resourced? SGBs, circuit managers, district rationalization and realignment coordinating committees must come to the party. Transportation of learners, provision of scholar transport. You know, we will continue, and I think even with the next commissioners, the issue of scholar transport will always come forward. But we are appealing, and we are saying, DOA and DOT must really assist. Local leadership, quite a number of issues have been raised there. Political resistance, demand for the use of closed what? Premises by the communities. But we are saying, let us join hands and assist. Learners, fear of the new environment, bullying and loss of friends to the new school that they are going to. And we are saying there has to be orientation programs that are in place, like peer buddy systems and counseling support. This is important, ladies and gentlemen, because these are human beings. Resource optimization and infrastructure. Was there improved efficiency in resource infrastructure use? And the answer is yes. And we are saying again, where there is transport provisioning, then everything else falls into place. Where there is infrastructure, then everything will then fall into place. But the absence of those really is putting a problem to the what? To the process. Better teacher ratio, broader curriculum coverage, budget consolidation, and more effective governance structures. So we see that. How were learner transport needs addressed? Even here, we are saying, as commissioners there, the available scholar transport in some schools was rationalized, and we all know that, to accommodate learners from closed learners. However, the reduction of scholar transport quotas affected this process negatively. In many cases, or in many of the districts, this service was not provided. The following activities were done through by the districts. 1, sketching of routes and verifying of routes per school, transport needs report compiled per school, per circuit, per CMC and district. DOE submitted scholar transport needs to DOT. Not all submitted routes are approved. 6.3, were upgrades made to receiving schools? In some schools, additional temporary classes were supplied, but in the majority of schools, no additional classrooms provided. As a result, most of the receiving schools could not continue with the process. I'm getting closer to the end. Number 7 is around monitoring, evaluation, and long-term impact. And the question is, what indicators are being used to track success? Ladies and gentlemen, you'll agree, and this was presented yesterday by Mr. Mfenyan. There is data on the number of merged, closed, and rationalized schools. Whether the process was followed or not is something else, but still there is data. For example, we now have mega schools that were established through this process that were not there before. And teaching and learning is taking place in those schools. Some of the schools have been resuscitated in the process due to increased learner numbers. They were once identified, and now all of a sudden we see growth in some of those schools. There are now conversions that have come up through this process. You would understand the issue of the realignment of these schools, moving the other grades that belong to that particular section. Some of the schools have been successfully repurposed to benefit community programs after conversions. There are remarkable notice of improvement in transformation and instructional leadership, and the morale of our teachers in some of those schools has improved. Has there been an evaluation, audit, or independent review of the process? Here we had to argue. We had to argue here because we had different interpretations of the question itself. But we agreed at the end that no, that has not been done. And we are putting that to the plenary. There is a need to institutionalize these processes so as to produce a credible report. There is a need, and the need is now. Lessons learned for future planning. Sithini na ke ngoko? Sithi. Lack of efficient stakeholder engagement hinders the implementation of the program. Sitsho. There is a need to improve collaboration within the various sections and the organs of government. Umbane ukwa HR. And then there is a colleague of mine, oku circuit management. I have a plan to close this school where HR advertises the what? The post. We need to talk to each other. What then happens to the resources? You know, there is a DDG, the scholar transport provisioning, as well as the nutrition program. There is equipment there. Equipment there. What happens to the equipment? Do we talk to each other? So we are saying we need to get together. Importance of attendance to IGR meetings organized by local and district municipalities. Where's the plans of the local government? Do they really know that 5 schools in that area are going to be closed or not? Do we take these to the IGRs for better planning? Let's get closer to each other. Let's talk to each other in one room and for one planning. Post-closure processes is not managed properly and can pose a challenge, yes, in other districts. But yesterday, it was raised there that Nelson Mandela Bay has done it very well. And we were asked to come closer to Nelson Mandela Bay. Why are we still having high municipal accounts? Do we really know the cause for that? Is it not because of these closed schools? That becomes critical. Let us look at these post-closure processes. Late provisioning of enablers can hamstring the process. I am not sure, but I stand to be corrected. We requested scholar transport at the beginning of the year. Now we are in what? September. Has that been provided? Then that could be the problem. Let's get closer and report on this. All reports must be presented to the relevant stakeholders. No confidential reports. Those reports must be presented to all relevant stakeholders. Recommendations as I close. 3 important things that we have to look at here. Practical strategies to implement circuit school landscape plans. 1, colleagues, we need, as of yesterday, to review the circuit school landscape plans. And they must be reviewed every 5 years. We operate in an open environment, and there are quite a number of changes. So we need to look into those staggered school landscape plans. Not only do that, mediate them. And mediate them to all the stakeholders. And for us to be able to do this, we need to establish staggered implementation teams. They have to be there as a driving force. Short-term actions within 6 months. Singenza ntoni ke ngoku? Let's review all the appropriate structures. The DRRCs, the district implementing teams, let's just review them. Where policy has been flouted, where it has, and in many occasions, we really need to mitigate it. We need to target now schools that are less than 50 and do something about them. Quick wins, we need to get to them and provide whatever enablers are needed. And for these schools, the process of public hearings must kickstart. Let us engage the communities. Schools must not be closed in the middle of the year. I know, schools really must not be closed in the middle of the year. That disturbs the system. Medium term, once we're done with the 50 less, we then target the 51 to the 80 learners, and then the 81 to the 100 learners. It's an elephant, it's huge. We need to take it pieces, bit by bit, up until we get to the end. Target schools with 51 to 80, and as I've said, plans to rationalize the existing scholar transport must be institutionalized, plans to rationalize and manage resources for both schools to refurbishment of existing hostels. We do have hostels, and I think we also have the hostel policy as well. We need to revisit that. Alignment of curriculum streaming to avoid intellectual genocide. This was mentioned yesterday. The issue of intellectual genocide, and it's my take home. Repurposing of closed schools to hostels and the post-closure processes really need to be looked at. With long term, beyond 24 months, application and establishment of new schools in accordance to SRRPs, establishment of hostels to accommodate a number of small schools, adequate provisioning of scholar transport, and budget for scholar transport to be administered and managed by the Department of Education. We were not aware, somebody told us yesterday, that elsewhere the budget is with the Department of Education. With all of its challenges though, mediation of the rural education policy then becomes critical in the long term. And I thank you. Thank you.
Can we once again give him a very big round of applause?
It's there.
Colleagues, we had agreed that if there are any additional inputs to be made on the work of a commission, we shall allow for that at the end of all the commissions. But can I just get an indication? Do you, in your view, accept this report? By show of hands, can I get the movers? Should we accept the report? Except for members of the commission. Okay, Ms. Wabana, were you in the commission? Are you accepting the report? Can I get a seconder? Thank you so much. Colleagues, that's also my view from the chair. I think that there is a lot of work. You see, when you are listening to a report which is presented to a summit, the question that preoccupies your mind is, what is new? What is new that this report is coming with? And I can assure you, there's a lot. There's a lot, Commission 1. Can you give yourselves a very big round of applause? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Commission 1. Can we then call upon Commission 2? The last time I checked, you were chair. Now you are at patrol. Okay. Welcome, that's good, Dr. Mdingi, colleagues, with a round of applause. Doc, thank you so much.
Can we copy this presentation?
You can copy it and put it there.
If it's fine with you. We're trying to, the organizers asked for all the presentations.
Okay.
So,
Slideshow.
it is on a slideshow.
Each commission was allocated 8 minutes. The commission number 1 exceeded their allocation by 2 minutes. Which was not by any stretch of imagination. I'm just saying it, Doc. I'm not suggesting anything.
Sorry. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good day. All right. I think that's a very nice welcome from my DDG. When you say I'm not doing it, but actually doing it. Fine. Without further much ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me humble myself and represent Commission number 2 as we were directed. And I would curate this report exactly within the confines of those directions that were given to us as the Commission, without any deviation. And correctly, as DDG is saying, I have been playing a role of being a facilitator, as the screen shows. I am now a rapporteur. That tells you a lot then about an individual, without blowing my own trumpet, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how we look like. We were assisted in scribing by the District Director, Mr. Mabekwe, and Mrs. Ngatani. And the theme, needless for me to explain it, because it's self-explanatory. So we were confining ourselves on that theme. The first thing that we had to address, ladies and gentlemen, was
setting that they want me to try and change. I do humbly apologize.
you would understand, ladies and gentlemen, it's not my fault.
Yeah, apologies.
I'm being disrupted.
I really apologize.
But I think it's a constructive disruption, eh? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. As I was saying, this is a constructive discussion.
Sorry, good dog. Can the person who brought this announcement come and assist me? Don't want to take it was ngathethwa apha. Ikhona kodwa into elahlekileyo apha. Hayi. Ikhona into elahlekileyo bakufundiswane ngayo, colleagues. Proceed, Doc.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. As I was saying that the disruption was constructive, if I may share with the House so that you are on the know, it was for live streaming purposes. Hence, I allowed it to impact my presentation. And we were looking at number 1, ladies and gentlemen, which talks to stakeholder mapping and engagement. We were trying to respond to identification of key stakeholders. We were also trying to focus our endeavors on coordination of that so that the exercise in which we embark on does not become a futile exercise, but it becomes a credible exercise, all-inclusive, as guided by the policies that are in place of the Department of Education, not only in the Eastern Cape, even nationally, DBE, so to speak. We spoke there of labor unions, deliberately so, if I may delve in that space just for 1 or 2 seconds. We said, let us not be divisive in terms of approach and start talking this union, that union, and that union, but just be embracing to organized labor so that they do not come to the fore with irritation that already, perhaps we were not even in your list, so we are here by accident or because we demanded to be part of your list. So we wanted the situation to be welcoming to everybody or the environment. Further to that, the list is as it appears, ladies and gentlemen. We were saying here, there is a mistake of omitting or leaving out, not intentionally, the disability sector. The disability sector. And this is one sector that we have to make sure that in whatever we do when we identify stakeholders, we don't leave out. I'm just underscoring that one so that everyone takes note of it. Further to that, we also said, in terms of the traditional leaders, we have lived experiences wherein they would say, and this was spoken about even yesterday, to say if you want to close, to merge, whatever you want to do, even the speaker before me did point to that, to say the traditional leaders have a vested interest because it is named after his great-great-grandfather and all that. And I think the retired statistician also, Prof, spoke about that at some point. So we said it would be a huge mistake if you leave. They may frustrate all what you want to do and achieve. Ladies and gentlemen, we moved on to speak about communication and advocacy. It may sound normal and usual that we communicate, but we want to crystallize some few points in the list that you see in front of yourselves in terms of trying to enhance the way in which we communicate and make people aware about SRRP. We said imbizos perhaps may be looked down upon by some of us, and we agreed as the Commission, if that does happen, that's the biggest mistake. And we need then not to find ourselves doing that. Because this links well with what we have highlighted in the previous slide of the traditional leaders. Some other people, in what you write, in your communication, may not comprehend, but when it's put in simple terms of imbizo, everybody would develop ownership and then regard that as a sign of respect, and definitely trust will kick in that these people are not here for any foul means, but they are here for a good cause. We further said in our engagement, it will be important to utilize structures like IDP Forum, to utilize structures like IGR, to make sure that the social media space is also optimally utilized. We understand it's already there, but the question that arises is it optimally utilized or something? And the undertaking in the Commission was that we are not optimally utilizing social media, more especially at the district level. The reliance is so heavy on services, DDG, that are rendered at a provincial level. And the current arrangement, therefore, warrants us to tamper with it so that what finds expression at the level of the province also finds expression at the level of the district, because it is where, Mr. Mabona, the tire hits the tar. Because it's where you have the schools. Because to them, if you limit it to the level of the province, the stakeholders, so to speak, it will be as if you are speaking above their own heads. We further said here the community radio stations. A glitch was there, DDG Chwagati, to say, would you then wait as a district for a spokesperson of the department to go and speak there? And we said in the summit, we have to make it clear that it's not about that. But now this is a totally different phenomenon that we are dealing with. And we have to be very flexible because people have to receive the information and be ready for whatever lies ahead, whether it's realignment, measure, or closure. So if you are to straitjacket it, you might miss the point. So we said the last point, the feedback loop. This, ladies and gentlemen, seeks to avert a point where we will be doing things maliciously so. We were in a summit, we have got to do it, doing it for the sake of doing it. But when you actually measure the impact of what you have embarked on, definitely that would make a difference. And we feel this, perhaps DDG has not been observed as it dictates to us in the recent past. Now, participation and ownership. These are the key points that the Commission raised. Bilateral engagement with traditional leaders, needless for me to overemphasize that one. We also said there has to be standard approach to stakeholder engagement. And what then would serve as a compass would be the stakeholder engagement framework. Do we have that in place, for argument's sake? If the answer is yes, how best then do we make use of it? If it's non-existent, who are we waiting for not to have it then? Because still, if we don't have that kind of a stakeholder engagement framework, we would be missing the point. So it is upon this summit to make that kind of a resolution that it be there if it's not there. If it's underutilized, it be optimally utilized. Engage with learners in FET through RCLs. Remember, our children these days, ladies and gentlemen, will say, nothing about us without us. And this, if taken lightly, might present itself in what we will be talking about in the slide to come, that talks to resistance. Then that would be unwarranted, because you would have overlooked people who matter most, given this kind of a proclamation by them to say nothing about them without them. We are further saying the in-house Indaba has to kick in DDG in terms of capacity building. Do our officials at the level of the district understand the fundamentals of forging ahead with this huge responsibility? And if not, how best do we mitigate that? And the response that became crystal clear was that capacitate them. We understand when school rationalization came for the first time, CJ, there are some colleagues who are in that space who were capacitated. And the argument now that arises is that take on board the new role players who were never privileged to get that kind of a capacitation. We further say here, in terms of the schools using names of people, dare not make a mistake of overlooking those families and only focus on traditional leaders. Because one would have been a progressive leader in the society or the most enlightened person who led to the establishment of a school in that community, and the school was then named after him. So it would be a blunder to focus only on traditional leaders, not those prominent figures that would have left that kind of a footprint in the society. A pointed case is that of Atwell Madala in OR Tambo Inland. That family is hands-on in that school, donating with everything that it could, encouraging learners in every respect. So you cannot turn a blind eye to such lived realities. That's the point that we are making as the Commission. We say we can also utilize the parents' meetings in a more meaningful way. It should not be malicious. Engage with staff members to discuss conditions of service and job security. Remember, this has been, SAJ, kind of a missing link in one way or the other. This has been an unintended consequence, DDG, because we have overlooked these people, whereas they matter most. Hence, you would see organized labor at some point coming on board with guns blazing to say, these are our members. So as this summit, we need not to overlook that, because it's a lived reality. And if it is a lived reality, how best do we mitigate it so that it does not resurface and show its ugly face going forward? Resistance and conflict, as I promised this gathering, that we will talk to this as a coming slide. We have arrived to that slide. Conflict management. We are saying that there are those key challenges, resistance, so to speak. How do we encounter that? And how do we counteract that? And we need not to counteract, colleagues. Let that be put up front as the Department of Education. The reason, DDG Chwakati, would be that if we counteract, it means we are betraying our own core value, which is responsiveness as the Department of Education. We will be betraying our own core value, which is empathy. So if we keep those in mind, sharply so, definitely we'll never go wrong in our endeavors to make sure that quality learning and teaching does take place in our schools. We were saying then there is that district team that is already there. We had a feeling as the Commission that the district team that is assigned this huge responsibility of dealing with matters of rationalization, realignment, and major closure of schools is not optimally utilized, such that some committees are getting rusty in the process. And that is not right. if we want to hit the nail on the head, let's resuscitate those committees in our districts. This begins to suggest again, DDG, our way forward as steps to be taken without us pronouncing here, but if one follows how we are presenting ourselves as the Commission, it begins to give direction. Because theory without practice, I understand there's an argument that says there's no theory at all, vice versa. You have to balance theory and practice so that you are able then to measure the impact that you would have made in the process. We are further saying here, DDG, as the Commission, embrace data-driven approach to eliminate any misconceptions, and we make the list. How do you gather that data? PPN funding, teaching, and learning. There has to be a high degree of planning to eliminate any possible ambiguity. Remember, I think I like you most, DDG Chokati, when you say, hey, hence we're saying possible. We may not know, but we do contemplate that there's that high possibility of such coming and confront us. And we need not then fall into that trap. Let us be proactive, not reactive. We are further saying flexibility and patience in terms of dealing with the program. The team, for example, that we have spoken to DDG, we are saying as the Commission, might go engage and do not derive any pleasure in that engagement. Does it mean we must come back with our hands on the head, crying loud and crying foul and all that and giving up? And the answer of the Commission is that no, be patient with people. Perhaps for the first time, you may not get that kind of acceptance. You may not get that kind of ownership that one would like to see. We further say, focus on national and positive spin-offs of SRRP program. Remember, if we are having one Department of Education, as many of you may remember, that many fought for one system of education in the country, and we dare not then overlook this particular step to take, because there are some good practices that can be copied elsewhere so that we benchmark ourselves, so that we emulate those good practices as the Eastern Cape Province. No judgmental in addressing the issue under contestation. We need not to judge our people. That's what the Commission is saying, and be conclusive. Remember, if we do judge without having engaged and have facts, any debate that would arise outside facts that have transpired in that engagement would be miscalculated move. Our assumption has been that, colleagues, if you venture in the space of wanting to take decisions on the basis of perceptions and presuppositions without substance and content and facts, you would not be doing the right thing. So we need not to fall into that trap on the basis of taking full advantage of being in this summit. We're saying rules of natural justice. And this talks to the point that we have spoken to already, that of not being judgmental. Both sides of the story are important to be heard in all fairness. That's the point we are making as the Commission. We said there are recommendations that we do not argue for the sake of arguing as the Commission. But what are the suggestions? Some were traceable even in the previous slides. That look, this point that is being raised here already is pointing a way forward. We are saying here, there is short term. And our short term, as we may understand, colleagues, there would be short term, medium term, and long term. We said, let us confine ourselves at least within 6 months, so that there is no lull, no lapse of time from this summit to that period of 6 months from this day. Because if we do that, colleagues, that would be undermining our very being here. Resolve for the sake of resolving. Here are the summit resolutions. But how do you action them? And any plan without timelines, colleagues, it's our firm belief that is no plan at all. And it will end up being at risk of being anybody's business. And anybody's business is no business at all. So that's the philosophy. We are saying there are the activities, activity number one, and who is involved, and what timeline, the budget's implications. Colleagues, without undermining your skill of reading, I understand in some slides that I've spoken to have been too elaborative in one way or the other. So in this one, I would not undermine your skill of reading. I trust you. You see what is entailed. And I will go to the next one. We are also here, ladies and gentlemen, continuing with that. Because we are saying here, in number 7 for argument's sake, develop and distribute the flyers as part of advocacy. And who is responsible for that? We know colleagues like Abo Metolum Sejay in your chief directorate would be there to run the show. Even at district level, there are colleagues who would help us run the show. So we are saying here radio slots. There are community radios. For example, I understand here around Kabeja, there is a radio station, I'm not sure whether in Zide or in Kwazakele. So for people to understand even the language that is used there, because some other radio stations may be using a different language, which the local people may not understand. So we are making that kind of a suggestion and saying the district team must be hands-on. And I would like to just shed some light when we talk of a district team. It has been our observation, DDG, that when you go to districts, it will only be the circuit manager's responsibility. Nobody else in the picture. And we are saying because of that lived experience, it cannot be perpetual, this kind of arrangement. Let's condemn it and correct it and do it the right way, because it has to be the team, not just the circuit manager. Otherwise, if it's just the circuit manager, our undertaking was that you will be subjecting that circuit manager to failure. Teamwork, as even Mem Arstop, when he was welcoming us here, said, if you want to go far and fast, there's a difference. Go alone if you want to go fast, but if you go with a team, you'd go far. So we cannot turn a blind eye to such lived realities, colleagues. And there are things that we have to learn, there are things that we have to unlearn in the process so that we do right. We are saying staff consultation, we spoke about earlier on. When do we speak to staff consultation? The issue of facilitation in public hearings in schools where social facilitation or public hearings has not been held. We are informed about this, DDG, that there were schools that were served with that Section 33 letters and all that. And public hearings have already been held. So we don't have to have some kind of a dubious exercise or repetition of what has already been done, but start on a new leaf and move forward. Those that have been subjected to the process would be taken on board and continue from where the team left so that we make progress. We are talking about the key critical insights from the Commission. We are saying stakeholder engagement, critical in the process. Needless for us to overemphasize. Capacity building, needless for us to overemphasize, because the slides were speaking to that, and I expatiated. Localization of school rationalization, advocacy campaign, collaborative effort in the post-closure process. Because remember, colleagues, we talk of sister departments, we talk of the local states, you name all the role players. Going solo may be unwise, but going there in a collaborative approach where everybody who's got a stake in this kind of a program definitely we would never go wrong. We are again raising the issue which has not been observed in the recent past, that of a feedback loop. Very critical. It might sound simple, normal. When I grew up, I was told that usuality gamma conquers the mind. Thinking, you know, and knowing are two different things. Because when you have that feedback loop, you would be getting exactly what people are saying. And that begins to talk to your planning going forward. How do you brace yourself for the near future so that you don't make the same mistakes as you would have done? Some would be spontaneous, some would be self-tailored, you know, without realizing sometimes. But how do we do away with all that? You say the feedback loop will take us where we want to be. And the Commission thanks you for being a very good address.
Another big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. The Commissioner saved us 3 minutes. So can we give them another very big round of applause? Uti, Doc, usuality, as you grew up, conquers the mind. This day, they say, culture, it's strategy for breakfast. And this is the kind of mindset that we are here coming to change. Thank you so much, Commission 2. By show of hands, does anyone accept the report from Commission 2? Nathi qedo babili DDG Chwagati nawe babona ningathi ndithi viva. Thank you so much, colleagues. Commission 2 report has been accepted. Thank you so much. Can we move, colleagues, without you want us to give them another resounding round of applause? Yes, for the approval now. Thank you so much, Commission 2, for the good work. Commission 3, you are now invited to the stage. Commission 3. Thank you so much. Please do encourage him with a round of applause, Doc. The stage is yours. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. So? Program Director, DTG, Senior Management, and the plenary. Good afternoon. Our approach as Commission 3 was as follows. Ms. Pundwana, the facilitator, and Mr. Mchotan I was therefore given a task to report. The scribe, Ms. Makalima. Our task is infrastructure planning and provisioning. The number of commissioners, we were 26. Our approach, Chair, was as follows. One, we look at some kind of the literature that is available. For an example, UNESCO argues that by 2025, 70% of the communities will be living in urban areas. But by implication, this fact that we are presenting, or a scientific knowledge that we are presenting, is that it becomes an independent variable. As a result, we might not necessarily have a control. The only question, how do we then react in terms of that? Secondly, we listened attentively to the presentations that have been tabled in this seminar. For an example, State SA raised critical issues in terms of the status quo regarding the quality of education. One might argue to say schooling system. You could see the comparison, especially for the black communities, in terms of how they perform in terms of the critical subject. But basically, we all agree with State A to say, in terms of the small schools, probably there is no schooling. I'm just lacking of a word to say what is actually happening there. The second last, we will listen attentively to OTP. No. I'm doing an introduction. No, I'm sorry about that. I'm saying the approach of the commission. Yes. The second last, before I get to the presentation, we look at we listened at the presentation by OTP to say that we need to be very conscious as we are dealing with the project, especially when we are looking at rural wards. The last one, the stakeholders, if I might mention one, maybe SADTU, they were critical in terms of looking at the retrenchment of posts in the process. So our task was therefore to reconcile these contradictions as we present, to say how do we therefore answer this question in terms of the task that is at hand. These were the issues and the guidance that we received in terms of the commission. One, overcrowding in schools emanating from over-enrollment of learners by schools. Lack of collaboration between clients' departments, especially your public works, human civic settlement, COCTA, State SA, transport and others, to inform the rationalization process and to encourage integration. Delays in the implementation of projects resulting in migration of communities driven by various push and pull factors. You know, as we delay to implement projects, you find that when we have approved a project, when we implement that project, that community has already left. Misaligned communication plans resulting in poor visibility of district officials at various construction sites and project meetings. It is common that the district will only discover after 3 months that there is a construction that is happening elsewhere. in his or her district. Poor advocacy and management of monitoring and evaluation tools, such as education facilities management system, which is commonly known as EFMS, EMIS, to inform rationalization and realignment needs. Minimum utilization of existing resources like GIS specialists, town planners, and the district development model. The second issue that has been raised, planning and coordination. These are the key points that have been raised. Misalignment of a second school landscaping plans with infrastructure plan. Data remains outdated. Remember, when were these CSLPs were developed and signed? When have they been reviewed again to talk to the realities? Minimal utilization and advancement of tools at the department's disposal, like MS data correctness. You'll find that there is a school in the MS that has not yet been removed, but the school has been closed 6 months. Updated EFMS and updated SRRP. Poor stakeholder engagement, lack of interdepartmental integration plans in terms of MS and other programs. Poor communications plans, limited visibility of ECDOE personnel in IDPs and IGR, misalignment of municipalities and relevant stakeholders for planning purposes. The second last, before I sit down, funding and resource allocation. The question is very clear. Are budget sufficient? Any delays or insufficiencies? The key points that have been raised. One, frequency of reviews of district development models, or P5. You know, we are saying this issue of not reviewing frequently the B5 is a problem. Another issue that we have seen as an elephant in the room, over-allocation of projects on the B5, resulting in over-commitment against the available budget. At a later stage, when we are supposed to pay, we don't pay. Lack of SOP, that is standard operation procedure, to guide prioritization of projects for the implementation, versus the demand by members, honorable members, who, when they visited the district, they would say, please build this school against what has been prioritized by DF or the stakeholders. The non-existence of equitable share. Limiting conditions of the education infrastructure grant framework. Remember, the grant have got its own framework to say how to utilize the grant. Overcrowding needs, including ad hoc projects, result into overcommitment of projects in the P5. Lack of physical resource management, PRM resources in terms of organogram, especially at the district level. If colleagues, you could remember, I think during the time of Honorable Makupul, when there was an argument regarding the monies that were taken back, in the department we did not have officials in terms of PRM. It's a new phenomenon now that we have got our own insight now in the department. We are saying that therefore it's beginning to show that we don't have them at the district level. Low number of allocation of control work inspectors in the grant framework. Lack of establishment of district reporting meetings with the implementing agents at the district level. Limited reviews of implementing agents' capacity versus budget allocation. You find that the implementing agent will be given a bulk in terms of what is supposed to do as against its capacity. The last issue that has been raised, the major obstacles and the lessons learned from the project. These are the key points that have been raised. limiting government's regulations and policies, lengthy procurement processes, poor collaboration between districts and district stakeholders, poor monitoring and management of implementing agents emanating from the lack of capacity within the unit, limited infrastructure capacity at the district level, budget shortages to address backlogs, delays in payment of invoices to service emanating from the budget shortfalls, cost overrun of projects emanating from delayed payments. As a result, a project that would have been 70 million, it overruns only to find that when we finally pay, we pay 139 million. Recommendations. In terms of the short-term actions, what we need to do, we've got short-term, medium-term, and the long-term. In terms of the short-term, the commissioners resolve or propose as follows. 1, resuscitation of district infrastructure reporting meetings with the implementing agents at the district. Engagement of Statistics SA, South African Weather Services for planning purposes. Integration of interdepartmental units, our MS Finance, PRM, and other units that are dealing with hostel as well, for a collaborated management approach. Periodic reviews of B5, continuous review of service delivery agreements with the implementing agents to align them with the rationalization needs. Establishment of contractor building programs for provisioning of SME support. Capacitated control works inspectors at the district level. Establishment of monthly meetings with the Department of Public Works at the district level. The medium framework. Here we are arguing as commissioners that we need to establish physical resource management unit at the district level and decentralization of the budget. Strengthening of the district education forum and communication plans at the district level. Strengthening of the stakeholder engagement by integrating with sister departments, your human resource, your human settlements, treasury, and others. Updating and advancement of second landscape plans so that they talk to the current reality. The last one, in terms of the long-term plan, that is, we've put 24 months and beyond. Allocation of projects according to available budget. Our argument was very strong. To say it's of no use to allocate 1,000 projects, but in terms of your capacity, you can only pay 20. We'll say let's allocate the budget a project according to available budget. Reviewal on standardization of construction material to be used in the education infrastructure space. We have discovered that we found that some implementing agent will approve very expensive material and becomes costly for us as a department. Review of construction regulations. Review of supply chain policies for procurement of service providers for small projects. We are advancing it that we might need to develop the Mesilane program to disturb the status quo. Remember, currently, we only use tender system for everything. As a result, something that would have built, a structure that could be built at 20 million, it becomes 120 million. Approval. We have seen other commissioners raising the issue of the rural education policy. We will be advised, but our position is that it is still a draft. We argue strong that the approval of education, rural education policy, to ameliorate the negative impact of rationalization in rural communities, so that as we rationalize, we don't close schooling at all in rural committees. This is the policy that we believe so strongly as the commissioners that it will assist us if it finally gets approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Commission 3. With everything that they did. First addressing us without reading on a... but still getting into the presentation, which is so detailed. Still, they managed to save us 12 minutes. So can we give them a very big round of applause? You see, if you are dealing with a presentation which has started on that high academic note, you must be very careful. So that ungaphazamisani nogqirha in their doctored input. So can I just get a sense, colleagues, what's your feeling about this presentation? Are we accepting this report? Is it a well-doctored? Is that what we're looking for? Well-doctored. Thank you so much. Give them a very big round of applause. I also happened to have some few minutes in that commission, and I could really, as I was listening, see that there is something good that's going to be coming up. And colleagues, I think I cannot but emphasize the important point that each of these recommendations, Doc, okay. Okay, there's the mic, Doc.
One is afraid of being part of the undertaking of this very important gathering that accepts a commission's report with a connotation that says doctored. Because doctored in the true meaning means the content has been twisted to falsify.
That's another doctoring. That is another doctor. Doctoring the acceptance. Your acceptance has been doctored, colleagues. Okay, colleagues, I'm saying that, look, this process is meant to shake up the operations of the entire department. How I wish that we take note of the issues, all the new proposals. Some may not necessarily be new, that are actually coming up. And I think that for infrastructure, sure, if we cannot take seriously, because it says, just go back to the drawing board. That's what it actually says. There's nothing wrong that you've been doing, but there is more that we still need to do to improve our operation. Thank you so much. Last round of applause for Commission 3, as we now invite Commission 2. Commission 4, I'm sorry. Commission 4. Chawela Machawe, as we encourage you with a round of applause. That's Mr. Komble. Thank you so much, Muti.
Thank you, Chairperson or Program Director. Good afternoon, colleagues and guests that are amongst us. In the meantime, let me palaver. I guess, colleagues, let me pause it and say that it may take us the hammer and the anvil to squash and crush the issue of, or the quandary of school rationalization. The matter that is at hand, we want to achieve epistemic liberation. Hence, we're talking about here educators. Where are they? Where were they? Where have they been? Where are they taken to? As this Commission 4 and commissioners, we are looking at a very critical area in the system, which is bringing the life of the system at large. Now, educators that were in schools that were closed or merged, where are they? Where are these educators? Because we want them so that they can be gainfully employed and use them optimally as a system. Now, without them, our epistemic liberation will be not attained because they are not there. Now, let me just say that as per the end of August, which is this August just has ended, we had 277 of them who we could not match with the PPN. What it means is that they are not where they are supposed to be in the system. We are not sure whether they are gainfully employed or they are not. Now, what it means is that, but we are paying them every month a salary over a year, 157 million rands we are paying them. It's a lot of money that we are paying them. Now, what it means is that our system and our warm bodies, they don't talk to each other as it is. Now, what it does then, that in essence, as people are moved from point A to point B, that disrupt our teaching. But what we are saying is that as a commission, we must identify early who will move and to where will this person move, so that we can ensure that we're doing what is called post-matching in the system. I said we want to attain epistemic liberation. Without them, that will be not attained. Also, having done that, we must always make sure that we are compliant with the laws of the country. We cannot do things outside the law, especially on Liberation Act. It is very important that we have to make sure that that does happen. But it becomes easier if we can be able to do what is called skills matching. However, we are dealing here with human beings with emotions. Therefore, there must be a process that these people, they undergo so that we can be able not to find them at St. Mark's Hospital, etc., because of the pillars that are there. We must be able to give them what is called guidance as a department. Now, but there were gaps. There are gaps. Still, they are there even now in the system. One, we don't do skills audit in the department. We don't know who teaches what where. Such that when we do redeployment, we are found wanting at times because we may want to place somebody in a wrong post and people are not really redeployable at times. Because where we have posts, they don't match those profiles at times. Therefore, we're saying, let's ensure that whenever schools are being closed or to be closed, let's do what is called PPN profiling. We profile these educators to know what are they offering, so that whenever we close those schools, we can find fit posts for them. Then we deploy them. Another issue is issue of language. Now, the language is an issue that is emotive issue, because if you take Ukomle, who is Mna, to a Sotho-speaking area, I may be found wanting in that area. It means those areas, those issues are very critical. Therefore, also that is a problem that we need to look at. Having said that, let's ensure that people are trained, are given capacity so that they understand that they are moving to certain areas, therefore they understand. But on the main, we want to ensure that our classrooms that we have are manageable. Remember, our aim, again, is epistemic liberation. We want to have learners who can think critically, creatively. Therefore, they must have meaningful learning. Therefore, they depend on our teachers that we have. And lastly, whatever we do as a system, let's monitor and evaluate. Let's have a dipstick to understand what are the challenges, where do we make corrections. We don't do that, we will be at our own peril. Furniture in our schools, equipment, LTSM, what happens to those? Now, what the issue that is there is that now schools that have those furniture or LTSM, they must have been somewhere somehow recorded. Now, however, now some schools they don't do that, and we don't know how much do they have of that. Now it means we are saying that there must be inventory in those schools so that we can know that this school is being closed now. It has so many textbooks of this and that, and therefore when we transfer to another school, we understand that this number, it was there, it has been moved to another school. Now also the issue of procurement of books and also LTSM must be done in a proper manner so that everything is done quite correctly. But that is dependent on proper planning by the district as well as the school, that these things they happen in a proper manner. Now the issue of furniture. Now if it's the furniture, remember it's going to move from school A if it's close to school B. Again, we know it is in the register, but it must how many learners are moving? Because we're saying here, resources must follow learners. Now it means if learners move from point A to point B, they must follow by the resources that are there. However, we say that district asset management team must make sure that everything is done quite correctly and on time. And also, if there are any shortages, must be identified, and so that we cannot have any negative effects ultimately. So that learning and teaching can always continue with our learners. Now what we see here as the risks, because whatever is being done, you must always try to make sure that you mitigate the risks that are there. The first one is we know that in some schools our registers are not complete for our assets. Secondly, in some areas, furniture becomes we lose it, or it becomes misallocated, or sometimes it is stolen when schools are closed. But we're saying now the first thing to be sure that everything you know where it is, you must have full inventory of your furniture. You must know what you have. We're saying that when we transfer stuff, you must sign it off. It is transferred to school A to school B so that it is not misallocated. So whenever you need it, you know where it is. And also we're saying if schools are being closed, to prevent theft, please, we must ensure that we secure the buildings. We can have also a company that we can appoint so that they can be able to assist us in terms of security of those buildings. Now, we're saying now the issue of funds. Now, the funds, sometimes there's a failure from our side to close schools properly. Such that if that happens we continue, the funds continue to go to those schools. Secondly, we say that when funds are not spent and the school is being closed, now we find that those funds are misappropriated at a certain stage. And therefore, it means that there is non-compliance in line with the PFMA that is there, as well as the SASA about that issue. And lastly, there is weak accountability that is coming from districts. Now, again, these issues are very important that we need to look at, because these are the risks, and therefore we say what should be done as we move forward. But now the main thing is that our school principals, our SGP chairs, our district finance managers are very key. That these we can arrest this before they become big sort of problems. Also, in terms of our funds operation, our CFO also could be part of that, DDG is also part of that, but the main thing is that these risks, we must make sure that we nip them in the bud before they become our albatross on our necks. Now, another issue that we are saying here is that we've got our internal audit, it is not really up to scratch. Not when. I'm talking about internal audit of these issues. Another issue is how we delay to redirect the funds to receiving schools. School A has been closed, learners have moved to school B, but the funds still go to school A, not to school B. We delay to do that, and also if we do that, the public, there will be risk of that our reputation is a stake here, but people don't trust that we're doing the right things ultimately. But we're saying that in terms of our school, we must ensure that we have internal audit in our schools to understand that schools are being merged, schools are being closed. Also, ensure that we publish closures and measures so that people understand that those finances, they go to the relevant schools. They don't remain where we are at. Because if we're doing the same thing, we don't change, we won't find better results. One of the well-decorated scientists, Albert Einstein of relativity, once said, if you do the same thing time and again and expect different results, that is called insanity. We don't want to go there. Now, in terms of not then closing the school appropriately, now it means that we are going to pay municipality services, but the school has been closed. That is called wasteful expenditure, because we don't use those services. It means now what we need to do, even if we had contracts with our service providers, we must, before we close the school, pre-closure, we must talk to them that guys who are closing the school, therefore we no longer need the services, so that they don't bill us while the schools are not operational. And also, in terms of that, we need to ensure that there's safety operational risks that are there during disconnection. Now, because school may have electricity, we disconnect that in the school, but ensure that everything is done in a safety environment. We don't want to get people to governance here. Governance, it plays a very big role. Because we're saying here that pre-closure processes must take place. Now, we don't close school abruptly. We need people who understand, and SGP of those merged schools, if they have merged, they must meet, and therefore remember, there is a new school now, and have a new SGP, and those old ones, they fall by the wayside, and therefore they are disbanded. Now, the district HR, your SCM and the ITDF must be in charge of that administration of that merged school that are merged. Now, the governance here is from the school level to your district to the province, and therefore also go outside that oversight. Now, remember, now the school, at the school level, now you've got in the school your teachers, your principals, your teachers, and then your learners. Now, I was saying in the study that, remember, if schools merge, they form one school. Now, that school is a new school with no principal. There were two principals coming in this school. Now, there are no more principals. The post must be advertised, and they will apply for that post. They must know that. They must understand that. If my school becomes the whole school of the merger, I don't become a principal because this is my school. Not at all. The law is clear that this is a new post. It must be advertised. Therefore, that must be clearly defined. Now, even now, in terms of deploying employees in that school. Now, remember, I said initially that we must do PPN profiling of post. Now, as these teachers that are coming to this school because of the measure, some teachers here, we may not really need them because of their profile of the post and what is offered in the school. Therefore, they must understand how do we go about the issue of placing them in the schools. We don't say, this was my school. No. Even those who were in this school as you're coming in may be additional because what they're offering might not be what the school really needs, of the curricular needs of the school. That is important. Now the province, from your HOT, your DDGs, your CFO, etc., they must ensure that they do provide oversight on that. And then we know that now your treasury will do the same, your MEC and portfolio committee will do that, so that things are happening within the law. We don't push anything, things are done appropriately and correctly. We are just there. That is very important from our side. Now, but what we're saying, recommending now here, now it is important that our SOPs for school closure and measure must be updated. Seemingly, they are there, but seemingly they are a step behind to what they should be. Therefore, we need to them updated, our SOPs. It is important that there must be provincial workshops in districts so that people can maybe understand things that how they should be done. In terms of transition of assets, there must be for that a register. And we're saying that there must be a template that is given out so that we can have uniformity here. I always say this thing, that KFC in Sentin and KFC and Bizana has the same taste and the same feel. It's a franchise. Similarly, what you do in any district head office must be the same because we are the same department. We can't have different templates. One template must go out so that the people can understand and be accustomed to using the same template. And therefore, we also ensure that we implement transaction registers. They are done by the district, and therefore we do also financial verifications because it's important that if schools are closed, now there was money coming to that school, how much money is left in the bank of the school? Where will the money go to where the learners are going? Remember, resources should follow learners. They cannot stay where the school that is closed, but learners are going to school B. That must happen. And therefore, CFO or finance branch may just develop a dashboard. A dashboard is important, colleagues, chairperson and colleagues, that you can at any point in time know what is happening, how is it happening, why it's not happening, and be able to ask questions so that they can be able to monitor things as they happen in real time. In real time. Spot checks are important for risk management and M&E. Also, we ensure that treasury engagement is streamlined and redirected so that things are happening on time. Now, AFS of schools must always be out there and be able to analyze them and see what happens, and also can be able to redirect the funds where they are needed. However, for new principals in the new schools, we have to have a refresher course for them or training for them so that they can understand compliance issues in terms of finances and otherwise. Now, in terms of moving from now onwards, we need to review how our implementation, because we know that we have done this program for some time, and there are challenges that are there. Let's review and see how then can you change things as moving forward. And I said update SOPs and registers and strengthen consequence management protocols for non-compliance. That is very important because things they do get lost between the cracks because they know that nothing is going to happen after that. And also we need to say that let's also have a second workshop that is conducted that is going to focus on risk areas that have been identified. We know what are the challenges, your asset transfers, liabilities, focus on those, have a workshop on those, and therefore ultimately have a mid-term audit review of your audit funds. Because it's important that whatever you do, always move forward and check what is still lagging behind. You're talking about monitoring. As you're moving forward, you monitor. And therefore, in that way, you ensure 100% compliance on your funds within the 30 days LSA and report progress to Provincial Treasury, because they always talk about this 30 days turnaround time. Then we say consolidating of 2-year performance reporting to school measures and closures. Ensure that we are compliant to all reports and they are updated, and maybe to ensure that we abide by the PFMA Act, and lastly also we ensure that internal audit reforms are out there and people understand them and resolve all unresolved findings, and ensure that maybe you are able to escalate them to the relevant personnel, which is now our chief audit executive in the department, just in front of me now. In terms of this, in terms of the measures, we say that now we have to have a 3-year review of financial management in this. It's important, and then lesson learned from those are tabled to the EXCO and PC of Education, and also update for the next MTF, our 2028-2030 MTF cycle, and that things don't happen the same way again. Importantly, now we are saying the main key findings that we have here, there are 5 or 6 of them. 1, let's adhere and implement illegal prescripts appropriately. Our SASA, police, our Bella Act and frameworks of rationalization must be correctly adhered to and implemented by the department, so that there are no comebacks ultimately. Now we are saying here that let's form and resuscitate a functional provincial and teams for realignment and rationalization, so that we ensure that our processes are done correctly and are in line with our prescripts, and also develop a management plan for that, so that everything that we do in the province and the district, so that we can follow. Remember, the provincial one takes precedence, and then the district one follows up, and then we do that as we move forward. Now, verify all assets and audit them. Verify that they are there and audit assets that are in these schools, so that we know what we have. I'm saying this thing because, we're saying this thing as a commission because in some villages, if you go to a funeral, you see, hey, this is Toulouse. It's orange, yes? I was born in Toulouse, orange, but Nyan Sasalal. Let's call it, no, now, I'm going to I'm saying, let's verify and audit assets, so that we can send them to where they are needed. Either we direct them where they are needed to schools, or we redistribute them across the schools that they are in need of this. We are saying here, we need to review Section 21 status of schools that are there for closure. If it's going to be closed,